In the brutal, unforgiving mathematics of the National Hockey League, a catastrophic injury to a starting goaltender just days before the postseason represents the ultimate executive nightmare. The single organizational scenario that transforms a carefully constructed playoff roster into a collection of expensive question marks, searching desperately for answers that the medical staff cannot provide on any predictable timeline. But in the corporate architecture of a hard-cap franchise operating under the constant pressure of championship expectations and salary cap constraints, chaos does not merely create problems. It creates opportunity. And the organizations with the foresight to develop internal solutions rather than depending exclusively on expensive external acquisitions are precisely the organizations that survive medical crises without detonating their financial flexibility in a moment of institutional panic. We are sealing the doors to the tactical war room today because the Toronto Maple Leafs are staring directly into a genuine medical crisis in the crease, and they are responding not with expensive emergency acquisitions or organizational paralysis, but by activating one of the most financially intriguing and competitively promising organizational assets currently developing within their system. Grab your goaltending scouting reports, pull up your salary cap ledgers, and prepare your analytical minds for a complete, unsparing dissection. We are about to audit the biomechanical breakdown of Anthony Stolarz and examine precisely why tonight represents a massive multi-million-dollar, career-defining audition for Artur Akhtaimov on the most consequential stage of professional life. Let us immediately, and without any organizational sentiment, establish the grim architectural reality currently confronting head coach Craig Berube as he navigates the final, critical stretch of a regular season that has already tested the organizational resilience of this franchise beyond any reasonable expectation. With only 4 games remaining on the regular season schedule before the postseason begins in earnest, the absolute last organizational crisis any coaching staff can afford to absorb is a significant lower body injury to a primary member of the goaltending rotation. The timing is not merely inconvenient. It is strategically catastrophic in a sport where goaltending consistency and established crease chemistry are among the most critical variables determining playoff survival. But against the Washington Capitals, the precise worst-case scenario materialized with a kind of sudden, completely unscripted brutality that reminds every NHL executive why depth development is not a luxury, but an organizational survival mechanism. Anthony Stolarz suffered a lower body biomechanical failure just minutes into the contest, forcing Joseph into a cold, completely unscripted relief appearance that tested his professional composure and organizational readiness simultaneously. Berube addressed the situation with the blunt directness that has defined his communication style throughout his tenure behind the bench, confirming in his post-game press conference that Stolarz is definitively out of the immediate competitive equation. He requires further imaging to establish the precise scope and severity of the injury, and with the playoff schedule looming with unforgiving immediacy, exposing a potentially compromised goaltender to the physical demands of meaningless late-season regular season games represents an unnecessary and organizationally irresponsible risk that no competent coaching staff would seriously consider. But embedded within the organizational crisis created by Stolarz's absence is a tactical pivot that transforms a medical setback into a genuine competitive intelligence opportunity. The Maple Leafs are not looking backward toward the injury report with organizational helplessness. They are pivoting forward with deliberate, calculated intentionality toward the evaluation of their own internal future. We must aggressively redirect our full analytical attention to the man who will be taking the crease against the New York Islanders in what represents far more than a routine roster management decision. Artur Akhtaimov, a goaltending prospect whose combination of physical tools, competitive mentality, and contractual structure makes him one of the most organizationally significant assets the Toronto Maple Leafs possess at any position across their entire system. This deployment is emphatically not a random minor league call-up designed to absorb pucks in a meaningless April contest while the organization waits for the injured starters to recover. This is a highly calculated, precisely timed deployment of a premium organizational prospect at the exact moment when competitive context provides the most meaningful and revealing evaluation environment available outside of the actual playoffs themselves. Let us conduct a complete audit of the Akhtaimov resume before we examine the financial and organizational implications of tonight's appearance, because understanding what he has already demonstrated at the professional level is essential context for evaluating what tonight's opportunity genuinely represents. Akhtyamov has functioned as a genuine stabilizing force for the Toronto Marlies throughout the current AHL season, posting a solid .903 save percentage across a meaningful sample of games that confirms his ability to perform consistently under sustained competitive pressure of professional hockey, rather than simply delivering isolated outstanding performances in favorable matchups. That consistency earned him a completely justified and analytically defensible selection to the 2026 HL All-Star Classic, organizational recognition that reflects the evaluation of professional scouts and development staff who observe his work on a nightly basis without the distorting lens of organizational hype or promotional enthusiasm. He provided a brief 5-save cameo in December that offered a tantalizing glimpse of his NHL-level tools, but tonight represents a fundamentally different and dramatically more revealing competitive challenge. His first official NHL start in a real game against professional competition, with organizational stakes that extend far beyond the result of a single contest in April. Berube's public endorsement of Akhtyamaov's readiness for this specific moment carries significant organizational weight, precisely because a head coach has not historically been someone who offers unqualified praise without genuine competitive conviction behind it. His explicit citation of Akhtyamaov's elite reflexes and his direct characterization of the young goaltender as competitive as hell represent the kind of specific, attribute-focused assessment that reflects genuine coaching observation rather than organizational public relations management. When a EAD coach preparing for the postseason describes a goaltending prospect in those specific terms, he is communicating something meaningful about his own confidence in deploying that player under bright, unforgiving lights of NHL competition. But the single most important metric surrounding Artur Akhtyamov for the purposes of this organizational audit is emphatically not his save percentage, his goals against average, or any other traditional goaltending statistic that measures his on-ice performance in isolation from its financial context. The most consequential number in this entire discussion is a contractual structure that the Toronto Maple Leafs front office had the foresight and the organizational intelligence to execute in March, locking Akhtyamov into a 3-year contract extension, carrying an average annual value of exactly $900,000. Freeze your financial processing completely and examine with full analytical clarity the extraordinary, almost disproportionate organizational value embedded within that specific contractual number, because it redefines the stakes of tonight's game in ways that the final score alone cannot fully capture. In an era where the Toronto Maple Leafs are compelled by their own historical roster construction decisions to dedicate enormous, structurally limiting percentages of their available salary cap to the expensive contracts of their elite forward core, the organizational ability to identify, develop, and contractually secure elite goaltending at a cost-controlled price point is not merely convenient financial management. It is the organizational holy grail, the single most valuable form of roster construction efficiency available to a franchise permanently operating near the upper boundary of the hard cap. The arithmetic is brutal in its clarity. If Akhtyamov demonstrates tonight and in subsequent appearances that his AHL excellence translates credibly and sustainably to the speed, the shot quality, and the competitive geometries of the NHL level, he transforms instantly from a promising organizational asset into something far more financially significant. Proof that the Toronto Maple Leafs do not need to enter the summer free agent market and commit $8, $9, or $10 million annually to an established veteran goaltender in a desperate attempt to solve their crease situation through expensive external acquisition. He becomes the organizational argument against the desperation premium, the internal evidence that patient prospect development can produce NHL-caliber goaltending at a fraction of the market cost that competing organizations are forced to pay for comparable production. The parallel to Dennis Hildebuy's developmental trajectory is analytically instructive and organizationally relevant in this context. Hildebuy's ability to translate his minor league development into credible NHL performance demonstrated that the Toronto goaltending development infrastructure possessed the institutional capacity to produce NHL-ready goaltenders through internal processes rather than exclusive dependence on expensive external acquisitions. Akhtyamov's opportunity tonight represents the next organizational test of that same developmental infrastructure, the next examination of whether the systematic, patient investment in goaltending prospect development can consistently yield the cost-controlled NHL contributors that the franchise's salary cap reality desperately demands. Tonight against the New York Islanders is categorically not a meaningless April hockey game filed away in the statistical record as an organizational afterthought before the playoffs begin. It is a grueling 60-minute corporate interview conducted under the most revealing competitive conditions available, with every save, every rebound control decision, every positional adjustment, and every response to adversity being evaluated simultaneously by the coaching staff, the organizational development team, and the incoming front office personnel who will be making consequential goaltending decisions affecting the franchise's competitive trajectory for years to come. The Maple Leafs are actively charting and financially stress-testing their complete goaltending hierarchy for the 2026 to 27 season in real time, and the intelligence gathered from Akhtayamov's performance tonight will directly inform the organizational calculus surrounding how aggressively and how expensively they pursue crease solutions on the open market this summer. If Akhtyamov steps into the brightest organizational lights of his professional career and executes with a competitive poise, the reflexive brilliance, and the positional intelligence that his AHL resume promises, he delivers the Toronto Maple Leafs something worth substantially more than a single regular season victory in the final week of April. He delivers organizational proof of concept, financial liberation from the expensive goaltending market, and the competitive confidence that the franchise's most critical positional need can be addressed from within at a contractual cost that preserves the salary cap flexibility required to fix every other structural deficiency on the roster simultaneously. The net belongs to him tonight. The organizational opportunity is as massive as any he will ever encounter, and the entire Toronto Maple Leafs front office will be watching every single shot that finds its way toward his crease with a focused, financially motivated intensity of executives who understand that what happens in these 60 minutes could save them tens of millions of dollars this summer. Annihilate that like button right now to signal to the algorithm that you demand this level of deep, financially grounded, organizationally honest goaltending analysis rather than surface-level injury updates that miss the true strategic significance of what tonight represents. Lock in your permanent clearance in this tactical war room by activating your subscription immediately. Keep your eyes completely fixed on the transaction wire as the organizational implications of tonight's performance ripple forward into the summer decision-making process. And stay ruthlessly, completely focused on the salary cap spreadsheets as we continue tracking every consequential organizational development surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs.